The world is a stronghold for the reclusively cloistered sage. Behind me is an ice curtain, tumbling silk hangings. Before me, a wondrous grove, a dreamwood, luxuriant. Below, broad pasture expanses, billowing seas of grass.
In the district of Haramzek, it is believed to the present time that if Alexander Csoma had returned from Tibet, he would have become the king of the entire land of the Seklers. They waited a long time. Some still await him now. When the merchant's caravan reached the town, a great clatter of music could be heard on all sides of the streets. Hard to tell where it actually came from. As they pushed on further, Alexander Csoma saw men and women standing in a ring, hands linked. In the center of the circle was a violin player, striking up a Turco-Croat song. Others were accompanying this on zither, brass rattles, tambourines, drums, much as if it were a devil's dance down in hell. Not that it was that, for it was a bridal feast. Men and women alike wearing wide pantaloons and snug, scaly silver kaftans. The merchant signaled for his caravan to halt. They had arrived. My eldest son is marrying for the 4th time. What do you say to that, scholar? I told you, did I not, that I'm not a poor man? I have 4 wives myself, he said loudly, turning to Alexander Csoma. Come on in, then. So Alexander Csoma entered the courtyard with the merchants, joined the ring, and they danced together that way until dawn the next day. But even after that, The wedding feast carried on for a further 10 days, and the merchant would not allow his guests to leave. He had them dance morning, noon, and night, until the entire wedding party had fainted dead away from the circle, and every gypsy was snoring in his sleep. The wealthy merchant sought to show how merry Turks are as a people, and him the merriest and wealthiest of them all. Yet the hardiest dancer amongst all was not the swaggering merchant, but Alexander Csoma himself. He was the last one left standing on his feet after 10 days. He alone endured the leaping around, the ceaseless musical pounding of the dirt. Never was a wedding feast as big as that seen since, anywhere in the Balkans, it said. Anyone who can endure a merchant's wedding for 10 days can go straight to the land of the Himalayas. Thus Alexander Csoma himself went, the moment he had stopped dancing. Down into the depths, up to the sky, across entire continents. He reached there without stopping once. Turks and Greeks and Bulgars declare even to this day. Anyone can learn that when passing through those parts.
A cool breeze wafts. A whiff of flowers drifts on the air's wings. And the waterside willows sway in a decorous dance.
परंतु हिमालय का एक ऐसा रूप भी है जो उदास और अमित्र है। इसके दक्षिण घाटियां जिनको भारत का स्वर्ग कहलाया है, लेकिन हिमालय के उत्तरी क्षेत्र में असीमित मैदानों में काफी भयंकर तूफान विनाश करते हैं।
Who has business here should direct his path this way.
जिसे उधर कोई काम हो।
Των δε μυρμίκων των χρυσορύχων, δέρματα ειδήν φυσίν ούτως, παρδαλέες όμοια. Υποκειμένων δε τούτο χρυσορυχίων,
Gold mining ants live in the mountains. These ants are no smaller than foxes, but their skins are like those of leopards. They dwell in large holes in the bowels of the mountains, and the gold dust they mine, they heap up at the mouths of the holes like moles. Very few of our kind have ever seen this landscape. Its treasures and beauty may be no more than wishful thinking.
देववर्ष सहस्रेष्वपि न शक्नुयान्ते हिमालयस्य स्तुतिं प्रकीर्तितुम् आश्चर्यचितः स्थित्वा किञ्चित् पुराण विशेषभाव रोमहर्ष प्राप्तोऽहम् व्यामोहितचित्तः पर्वतं प्रणमामि यथा गुरुं देवतां वा हिमालयो हि न केवलं मन्दिरं देवगृहञ्च स्वयमपि भगवान् हिमालयोद्भुतोत्तमोऽस्ति देवमनुष्यलोके।
A tavaktól északra fekszik a felséges Szent Kajlásza, amely a Gangri-lánc összes többi havas csúcsánál vagy 600 méterrel magasabb.
To the north of the lakes stood the magnificent sacred Kailash mountain.
A festő szemének akkor volt a legtetszetősebb, amikor felhők lengték körül és enyhítették, alakították formáit. Ilyen körülmények között igen szépnek találtam, napfelkeltekor különösképp, amikor egyik fele vörösben és sárgában fürdött, sziklás tömege pedig méltóság teljesen állt a ragyogó aranyháttér előtt. Távcsövemmel különösen a keleti oldalon tisztán láthattam a szorost, amelyen az imádók körüljárják a hegylábát.
We could see more distinctly the band around the base of the mountain, which, according to legend, was formed by the rope of the devil, trying to tear down this throne of the gods.
Ad diabolus nunquam in his plagis firmiter insistere potuit. Adoratoribus pacem et rem miram non permittentibus rumpi.
But the devil was never truly able to gain a footing in this region.
In Secular land, they recount even to the present time how the world would stand agape when Alexander Csoma was spotted somewhere. Once, for instance, still en route to Tibet, a big ship almost foundered by the shore of the Saracens. So big a sailing ship that the entire land of the Saracens would have comfortably fitted on it. Alexander Csoma just happened to be paying a visit to the ship's captain when a frightful shout sounded from the rigging aloft. "Ahoy! Here comes the Black Hurricane!" In the twinkling of an eye, a dark shadow spread across the waters of the sea. On the heels of that, a sky-high wave swelled up, picking up the gigantic ship on its back, only to plunge it back down from on high like a broken-winged sparrow. It then soared upwards afresh on the back of the monstrous waves. So it went on and on, with the turbaned Saracens just tumbling about in the belly of the ship, their world turned topsy-turvy. Scholar, sire, true believer that you are, in Alexandria you have a reputation as a learned sorcerer. The captain in his dripping wet pantaloons turned with great respect to Alexander Csoma. The Black Hurricane has already destroyed all we possess back home. Our livestock, our houses, our country. The better half of our people is lost. Now the other half too awaits its death. Save what is left, I beg you. Summon up your schooling. He bowed humbly in his silk pantaloons to Alexander Csoma, at which the latter stood silent in the ship's prow. He looked up at the black clouds in the sky, and at that moment spotted amidst them the black dragon from hell. As the story is still told to this day, he quietly hailed it, then launched into a long discourse. No one knows what language he spoke, or what he may have said, but the dragon gradually calmed down. In the end, it became as meek as a lamb, and stole away in such a manner that from that day on, he was never seen again. That is how the Saracens were left on the face of the earth, for otherwise they would no longer exist.
देववर्षसहस्रेष्वपि न शक्नुयां ते हिमालयस्य स्तुतिं प्रकीर्तितुम्.
I stand dumbfounded in the festive mood of ages long gone. A shudder seizes me. For the Himalayas are not just a shrine, a church, but God Himself.
हिमालयोद्भुतोत्तमोऽस्ति देवमनुष्यलोके।
हिमालय के गंभीर उदास रूप का कैलाश पर्वत एक हिस्सा है जो सदा कठिनाई हो सकता है। इस क्षेत्र की कठोर सर्दी, अप्रिय मौसम, आंधी तूफान,
The wild winds and storms all evoke the god Shiva.
विस्तार से बताते हैं।
Shiva and his divine consorts have their abode on the tallest peak of sacred Mount Kailasa. Above them are the heavens. At the foot of the mountain is the middle world of humankind. Below that are the various levels of hell.
कैलाश पर्वत की सबसे ऊंची चोटी पर
Shiva és
शिवजीवा
Isten
देवी
asszonyai
रहती है।
lakják a Szent
उस
Kajlász
चोटी से
hely
ऊपर
legmagasabb csúcsán.
आकाश में से
Fölöttük az égben már csak Brahma Isten palotája áll. Nem csak a
सिर्फ हिमालय
Himalájában,
में ही
de az
नहीं
egész földi világban
इस
a
जमीन
Kajlásza a
पर कैलाश
legmagasabb
पर्वत बहुत प्रसिद्ध है।
A
शिव जी
Shiva
के परिवार
családdal
के
együtt
साथ
élik a
सर्वाधिक
legtöbb
हिंदू व
Isten.
बुद्ध भगवान यहाँ रहते हैं।
Fölöttük a mennyek,
कैलाश
a
पर्वत के
hegykövében
ऊपर
a
सूरज है।
középső, az emberi világ,
पर्वत के पैरों पर
alatta
मनुष्य
a
जीवन
Bognár
है
különböző
और
szintjei.
जमीन के नीचे
Kailasa is the center and axis of these three worlds. The world mountain,
देववर्षसहस्रेष्वपि न शक्नुयां ते हिमालयस्य स्तुतिं प्रकीर्तितुम्। हिमालयोद्भुतोत्तमोऽस्ति देवमनुष्यलोके।
Gangnam Kwenpe Toze Gane, Shoba Ngabune, Dong Jelinki, Nimashawa, Pepsu, Pegi Nanchu Ni, Yujo de Lochidon Samjing, Yua Mebatar, Ne Yure, Lochidon Rinla, Nimatawar, Tabatesu.
Once, when he was traversing the great sandy desert, Alexander Csoma suddenly found himself in the splendid garden of the King of Araby. Though he had seen many marvels and glories by then, even he had not witnessed the likes of this. Amid the cool shade of ferns, winding their way amongst bubbling fountains, the courtiers conducted him to the palace. In its rooms were crimson curtains before windows of ice-clear crystal, pillars of veined marble everywhere, colorful gemstones heaped in huge basins of gold at every turn. The king was away at war in a nearby place, but they were expecting him back by the evening. Meanwhile, Alexander Csoma was pampered in a scented bath and clothed in white gossamer Arabian garb. He then idled away the time with the servants. It was his habit, wherever he might go, whomsoever he might meet, to acquire that person's language without further ado. Despite taking a bag full of tongues with him when he set off on his journey from the land of the Sackless, they were never enough. Likewise at the palace of the king of Araby. So intently did he listen to the domestic servants that by nightfall he had mastered that king's tongue as well. At which moment the king himself indeed returned from the war. When he learned that Alexander Csoma was visiting, he let out such a shout of joy that all the men of rank and all the king's servants flocked together. For in those days, a king of Araby was rarely accorded such an honor. He gave orders for a great feast to be prepared. They ate and drank and became fast friends. But even after that, Alexander Csoma held his friend in conversation for 3 nights and 3 days. He told him about his native village of Körös, about Nödjenyed and Göttingen, where he had been schooled, and also about how he was seeking his homeland and the ancient relics of his countrymen in Asia. The king was greatly amazed listening to this, marveling at Alexander Csoma's intrepidness. Then, with the king being obliged to return to the war as he was now sorely missed, and Csoma to carry on his journey toward Tibet, they embraced one another with deep emotion. So that the wanderer might never forget this land, the king bestowed on him the gift of a large gilded book. So big was the book that it took 4 servants to carry it in Alexander Csoma's steps, all the way to the very center of the distant Himalayan land, then straight up from there to the very summit. In this large gilded book were all the languages in the entire world, so that Csoma could learn whichever of them he wished and derive pleasure in doing so as long as he lived.
Monachus tibetensis inter Saxea Himalae propugnacula in monasterio suo latitans casus vitae terrene frigide spectat.
Tela tave nejungang
Frigide pacifice ne eum impetus essendi id est voluptas vivendi secum rapiat. Frigide et longe ut tranquillitas eius inconcussassit. Ne cupiditates in se excitet in vita terrena pulcritudines et gaudia abunde prebenti, tamen malis et doloribus plena. Non vult pugnare, quias sit quid se infine maneat, quamquam ex omnibus pugnis interim victor excesserit. Unde quod in altitudine saxorum positus infra se videt, sentit esse mundum fictitium speciemque fallacem.
Himalaya Rigula Kardu Latobu Nala Ember Navy Pegi Tabateyi TV Tsudo Kanshi Tudato Chiwa Mebe Kovanki Jegar Jigu Jegi Teni Tuendambin Zebutang Tuendambi Kawate Yinam Tamjela Timna Pone Yue Sawate Jigden Pebakunki Tevar Mujinche Yang Kongi TV Tsudo Debe Zebo Debe Kawa Debe Kibu Teda Tunge Mayinam
To this day, the story is told in Baghdad of how Alexander Csoma saved the caliph. On one occasion, when the two of them left the palace to take a ride, they were so immersed in conversation, they failed to notice they had ventured beyond the city gate. Despite proceeding far beyond it into sandy desert, They could not bear to break off philosophizing. All at once, though, they saw a great dust cloud arising in the far distance and swirling ever closer. Then suddenly, before their very eyes, an entire army of Persian cavalry emerged from the dust. They were galloping, swift as an arrow, straight for Baghdad. But the moment they spotted the two lonely horsemen, the host reined in and came to a halt. "Who might you be?" The Shah of Persia himself came forward from amongst his 10,000 horsemen on his curly-maned, emerald-eared steed. "I am one who this morning mounted his horse in his town and, musing on the ways of the world, got to this point in the desert. That's who I am. So is my companion. And so are you too, whatever you may do," responded Alexander Csoma, cool and collected. "A man cannot be more than that, even if one of us may be the Caliph of Baghdad and another the Shah of Persia. If one of you is indeed the Caliph of Baghdad, then at a nod from me he will be dead, and his city mine. Still, the encounter might have happened the other way around, and then my life would hinge on him, with Persia being lost along with me. Is that really all there is to it?" The Shah of Persia pondered in the desert on what Alexander Csoma had said. Then, slowly, grudgingly, he wheeled his steed around, gave a sharp dig of the spurs, and galloped back with his army behind his own walls. Never again did he take to the saddle at the head of his troops. It is just the wind that your vainglorious fist clasps leading your army. All else is nothing but a warped fragment. Your fate as well, the Shah later read in the library of his palace. It is just the wind that your vainglorious fist clasps leading your army. All else is nothing but a warped fragment. Your fate as well, said Alexander Csoma to the Caliph of Baghdad on returning to his palace. There they left off philosophizing for that day. The wise Caliph then related the tale of what had happened to the two of them to his men of letters, who recorded it. And those who have read about and understand the essence of the desert encounter cite his words to this day. And the name of Alexander Csoma is not forgotten, but remembered with gratitude in Baghdad.
Des Menschen Leben scheint ein herrlich Los, der Tag wie lieblich, so die Nacht wie groß, und wir, gepflanzt in himmlische Wonne, genießen kaum der strahlenden Sonne, da kämpft zugleich verworrene Bestrebung, bald mit uns selbst und bald mit der Umgebung.
The life of man seems such a splendid fate. The day how fair, and the night as well how great. And we, in this share paradise so favored, the sun's magnificence we have hardly savored.
سأل ابن السبيل من القمر: أين تسكن الحرية والفراشة؟ أين محل الإقامة للإنسان؟ أين توجد هذه المساكن؟ والقمر أجاب على سؤال المسافر. الحورية توطن الجبل والصخرة والشجرة، والفراشة تختار العشب والورق والأزهار لمكان وجودها. أما الإنسان وهو يوطن العالم تحت السماء بأجمعه، وعليه يمكن أن يجد مسكنه في أي مكان، ولكن هذا يعني كأن الإنسان لا يوجد في أي مكان. المسافر توقف مذعورا فزعا، ثم أخذ في التحرك من جديد، ولكنه تمهل في خطاه وظل يكرر في نفسه هذه الجملة: توعد المستقبل القريب. مسكن الإنسان قد يكون في أي مكان، ولكنه لا يجد وطنه. إن مسكنه قد يكون في أي مكان، ولكن لا يجد وطنه. إذن وإلى أين أتوجه؟
Where is your dwelling place then? Where is the dwelling place of the fairies or the moths? Where is man's dwelling place? His dwelling place may be anywhere, yet still he finds no home. Where should I go then, in light of that?
Wer kennt sich selbst, wer weiß, was er vermag, hat nie der Mutige Verwegnis unternommen? Und was du tust, sagt erst der andere Tag, war es zum Schaden oder Frommen.
The milk is not seen in butter. Teaching is a mute secret. Not knowing derives from knowing. Entrust your seeing to your heart.
صدایی به گوش مرد مسافر رسید که می گفت: من پری بیداری افسونی هستم.
I am the fairy of wondrous awakening.
من در مملکت
Commander of dreams, judge of sleepers, whose souls ascend to heaven in their dreams to assuage the pain of earthly burdens on their return.
من هادی خیالاتی هستم که بر پشت بادهای شرقی سفر می کند، منتقد افراد خفته، کسانی که روحشان در خواب به آسمان سیر می کند، فقط به آن دلیل که پس از برگشتن به این جهان زجرهای دنیوی را تسکین دهند. محل سکونت روح این دنیاست، این بالا. استراحت می کند، خوش می گذراند. چنانچه از او در آن پایین استقبال خوبی به عمل آید، سفر طولانی دنیای زیر آسمانی را کوتاه و ساده تر می سازد. سفر مرموز ارواح به نزد من به این دلیل می باشد که خواب و رویا هم به همین دلیل است. آنگاه مسافر آهی کشید و در جواب
Oh, would that I could always dream and dwell in your land.
می توانستم در خواب و رویا باشم، می توانستم در سرزمین تو زندگانی کنم. پری چنین گفت: میدانم که دوست داری تا ابد نزد من بمانی، ولی هنوز نمی توانی به اینجا بیایی. فقط وقتی کالبد زمینی خود را کاملا رها کردی، این بهشت می تواند منزلگاه تو شود. تا آن زمان فقط می توانی میهمان من باشی. در آن هنگام که در خواب غوطه‌ور شده، کالبد خود را در جهان زیرین بر جای گذاری. میفهمی؟
This region will be your home when you have finally shed your earthly body. Until then, you can be but a guest here, when on sinking into dreams, you forget your body down below. You understand that, don't you?
সেই ভূমিতে শায়িত হয়ে ঊর্ধ্বপানে তাকিয়ে দেখি চাঁদের কাস্তে ভাসছে
As I lay there,
বেগুনি নীল আকাশে
I glanced up
শৈল সিংহের প্রান্তে
and saw the moon sickle in the purple blue air.
তার মৃদু জ্যোতির্বলয় যেন জাদুর ছোঁয়ায় আকাশের শোকাচ্ছন্ন কৃষ্ণতাকে সৌন্দর্যে রূপান্তরিত করল।
Whilst I beheld it with wonder,
আমি মুগ্ধ হয়ে তাকিয়ে রইলাম।
the moon stooped down to me from the brow of the heavens and whispered in my ear.
দেখো, আমি রাত্রির নায়িকা, স্বর্গের মুকুটমণি, আধারের স্বর্গীয় অবয়ব, কল্পনার অতীত যে মনোহর সৌন্দর্য তার স্বরূপ। আর তুমি আমার ঔজ্জ্বল্যে স্নাত প্রিয়তমের দৃষ্টির থেকেও কোমল ও নম্র, আমার রূপালী আলো স্রোতে ভাসমান। তোমার কি ইচ্ছা হয় না আমার প্রতি স্তুতি জ্ঞাপন করতে? আমিও তো দেবী। আমি ঔষধি প্রজননকারিণী, আত্মার শান্তি, শীতল পাণ্ডুর মধ্যরাত্রির অলৌকিক ম্যাডোনা। আমার সম্মুখে মাথা নত করতে চায় না কি তোমার মন? যেমন করে এসেছে অনাদিকাল ধরে মানব জাতি এবং আজও হয়ে আসছে পূর্বের দেশের লোকেরা। আমাকে তারা স্থান দিয়েছে দেবাদেবীর কুঞ্চিত ললাটে অলঙ্কার রূপে। এই বৃহৎ কৃষ্ণকায় পৃথিবীর একমাত্র ও অপূর্ব সৌন্দর্য সাধন বলে তারা আখ্যা দেয় আমাকে। একবার কল্পনা করো, আমি না থাকলে রাত্রির রূপ কেমন হতো? তুষারহীন আধার, অন্ধ আতঙ্ক, রহস্যময়ী রাজহংস, পাত্রপূর্ণ কর্পূর, রজত পাত্র, স্ফটিক মণ্ডল, শীতল অমৃত বর্ধিনী। প্রাচীন মানব আমাকে কত নামেই ডাকত। যখনই যে নামে তারা আমাকে ভূষিত করেছে তা সর্বদাই এক নারী, কারণ আমি হলাম সেই শক্তির প্রতীক যা একাধারে মাতা, সহধর্মিণী ও কন্যা, যা শুধুই আকর্ষণ করে, প্রতিহত করে না।
Have you no wish to pay homage to me?
আকর্ষণ ও আসক্তির এই শক্তিকে মানুষ ব্যক্ত করতে পারে না, তবু তার কাছে নিজেকে উৎসর্গ করে দেয়। তারই মধ্যে নিহিত সমস্ত সৌন্দর্য, তারই মধ্যে লুকায়িত সকল অনুভূতি।
In the dead of night, Alexander Csoma once mused at length on the mutability of the moon, on the new moon's brilliant sickle, on the waning moon's slim gondola, on the full moon's power to derange, on the frozen muteness of moonless nights. He was perched on one of the rocky bastions of the Caucasus, as guest of his friend, the god of the mountain. To the side, all around, the fragrance of flowering pomegranates and persimmon trees. Below him, endless meadowland. Down below, in the valley, the silver sea swell of grasses. Do you see how the wind fashions its waves? The mountain's prettiest fairy spoke unexpectedly next to Alexander Csoma. Alexander Csoma saw the mountain's sward bathed in moonlight and heard the tinkling bell of the fairy's voice, yet he dared not behold her. She was prettier than the moon and all the stars of the Caucasian sky together. How many years have you been looking at the spring firmament's tiny moon and its 10,000 billion stars, little fairy? Alexander Csoma asked quietly, gazing far ahead, not taking his eyes off the silver ocean of grasses. I have been looking at the spring firmament's tiny moon and its 10,000 billion stars for an eternity, the fairy replied, for as many years as this mountain has been standing here, and the moon passing overhead and looking down on me. And we shall go on looking at one another for an eternity to come, to the end of time. Despite which, I grow a little bit older every day all the same, she added, to show her compassion towards the mortal wanderer. And what about you, learned wanderer? For how long have you been looking at the skies, moon, and constellations? She went on to ask. I could count up the years, but I don't do that. I would become terrified at their rapid passing. That is why I, too, live my life the way you live. I shall be for as long as I have to be, as long as heaven wills. Yet, as this finite earthly existence elapses, I become much, much older every day. Alexander Csoma replied somberly to the fairy, with utter conviction. Stay here with me on this rock, then the passing of your life will cease. From then on, you shall live for eternity with the gods and fairies of the mountain. The fairy quietly entreated the learned wanderer, but she, too, pressed in vain to detain him. He was unable to stay. He soon left the Caucasus and the lovely, tinkling-voiced little fairy. Tibet awaited him. He was driven there by longing. Though unending discipline was his constant companion, he trod thereafter with heavy steps nonetheless, throughout his entire, lengthy, earthly path.
Rangsem namge shila, rangshin gurdo mejang, nyomon tinder chube, nawen gurdo dönchung.
مسافر در کنار دریاچه ایستاده بود. قطره‌های شبنم بر روی گلبرگ‌های نیمه شکفته نیلوفرها می‌درخشید. مثل این بود که
The wanderer came to a halt by a lakeshore.
پریان قطرات شبنم را
He gazed at the lotus calyces, gazed at the blades of grass. He gazed at the dewdrops.
و چمن هم خمیده نمی‌شد.
All the business of this world is a likeness mirrored on water. See and know that this fleeting outline can never be reality.
تو بیگانه هستی.
You are a stranger, fit for neither the celestial nor the earthly world.
من مسافرم و بعد سکوت کرد.
I am a wanderer, he said, and then fell silent. Soon the painful surfeit of furor powerfully impels him there, soon there, outdoors, and at the sight of heaven's spirits' luster and glory, pleasure in dreams emerges once more.
When Alexander Csoma one fine day arrived on Indian soil, the Maharajas rejoiced exceedingly. The fame of the learned man's miracle working had so long preceded him, they could hardly wait. Day and night, they spruced up their palaces and titivated their daughters. When Alexander Csoma had finally paid visits on all of them, without taking a wife from any, a great wailing and lamenting arose among the princesses. They all believed that the reason he had hitherto had no wish for any girl, whether Romanian, Bulgarian, Turkish, Greek, Saracen, Arab, Persian, or Tartar, was because he yearned with all his heart for an Indian girl alone. But to no avail were they clever and beautiful and diligent. To no avail their skills in gardening, poetry, and music. Alexander Csoma had no use for any of them, but just continued on his way. Yet it was they who truly knew that there is a land where the rooms behind the windows of crystal palaces eternally breathe an intoxicatingly heady scent, and torrid springs of rapture bubble day and night, and in whose arbors the flowers never wilt away. But they related all these many delights to Alexander Csoma to absolutely no avail. And anyway, what would the poor man have done with so many princesses? Were he to have taken them home with him, those many oriental princesses would have overrun every corner of Sekla land.
Chubul mingul shawe mada dangwe chima gelchu nyamcha duna yixie yingne shasu
당유 산남 초라 당무 남다를 내과 미다 치워 매나 세간 대장 대초
사제 겸에 풍부 세네 그뒤 민도 삼바직도 세네 너바 과시 겨우다
यहाँ है राजकुमारी।
यहाँ है राजकुमारी।
महोशय, हमारा देश तुम्हारे ज्ञान से चमक रहा है।
Sir, your learned fame illuminates our celestial land with great light. On hearing of your fame, I determined that I intend a princess for you.
राजकुमारी की शादी तुम्हारे से करूं। क्या मेरी इच्छा तुम्हारी चाह भी है?
Here is the princess. Does my will accord with your own wish too?
यात्री और राजकुमारी ने एक दूसरे के सामने सिर झुकाया और फिर पूरी शराब पी गए। इससे उनकी शादी हो गई। दासियां दोनों को मोमबत्ती की हल्की रोशनी में सुहाग कमरे में ले गईं। सुहाग बिस्तर लाल रंग के कोरल के पत्थर का बना हुआ था, जिसके साथ किस्म के कीमती पत्थरों से सजाया गया था। पर्दे भी छोटे छोटी झुंझुनाती घंटियां और कीमती पत्थरों से सजाए हुए थे। बहुत ही नर्म मुलायम तकिए और कंबल उन दोनों का इंतजार कर रहे थे।
The princess and the wanderer bowed to one another. Servants then led them by the pale light of candles to the matrimonial suite.
চোখ ঝলসানো চাঁদের আলোয় পৃথিবীর জীবন ও স্বর্গের স্বপ্ন বিষয়ী বিভোর। পর্যটক তার ঝানুতে মাথা নামিয়ে রাখল।
His dreams that day were fine and daring, for who knows what reason.
কোনো অজ্ঞাহত কারণে
Perhaps he was afraid,
সুখ ও সাহসী
whether that the dream would continue or come to an end.
অভিজ্ঞতা এই দুয়েই তাকে ক্লান্ত করেছিল। সে হয়তো অনায়াসে ঘুমিয়ে পড়ত যদি না ভয় থাকত। পর্যটক আতঙ্কিত হচ্ছিল। এই স্বপ্ন কি অব্যাহত থাকতো নাকি সমাপ্ত হবে? সে নিজেই বুঝতে পারছিল না যে কোনটা তার আতঙ্কিত।
Speak, my vagrant heavenly companion. Can what man seeks down here in the dust from there be spotted?
বলো, আমার স্বর্গের যাযাবর সঙ্গী, ওই সুদূর থেকে কি দেখা যায় এই পৃথিবীর ধুলার মানুষ কিসের সন্ধানরত? সে পাক খাচ্ছে বিক্ষিপ্ত মনে রহস্যময় সব ছায়ার মধ্যে। বেদনার্থ দৃষ্টিহীন সে ঘুরছে ইঙ্গিতময় সব অরণ্যে।
অনন্তকাল ধরে সেই একইভাবে নিজেকে খুঁজে চলে।
Eternally the same, on a search for his self.
মস্তিষ্ক তার শিকার করে,
Yet on his maps never spying the way ahead.
পুস্তকের পৃষ্ঠায় যেখানে যুক্তি হয় নিয়োজিত।
One day then, Alexander Csoma stood at last alone on the roof of the Himalayas. He looked about, turned round and round. The entire world could be seen from there. The reason he had gone up there was in order to glimpse the relics of the Magyars. But on his way, he was suddenly reminded of the British king. Once, a long time ago now, the British king had requested that if ever he were to reach the peak of the Himalayas, he should set aside a little time to read the Tibetan's library. He had found no one the whole world over who would be capable of doing that. This the king had explained to Alexander Csoma back then, and Csoma had given his word he would find the time. And so he went into one of the monks' monasteries and asked them to open up the library. When they had opened it up, Alexander Csoma entered, and at a single sitting read through 10,000 Tibetan books. He then got to his feet and pondered hard. The Tibetan books asserted that for him, seeing was nothing more than what the world displayed to him. This, however, was all illusion and falsity, because all was constantly in flux. By the time a person might get to know it, everything would be completely different. Csoma then mused at length as to why this should be of interest to the British king. He was also a little perturbed as to whether he fully comprehended the thinking of the Tibetans. So he sat back down to the books and compiled for the king a substantial Tibetan English dictionary. Let him peruse the books himself until he has grasped just how evanescent reality is.
अथखो भगवा उरुवेलायं यथाभिरन्तं विहरित्वा येन गयासीसं तेन पक्कामि महता भिक्षुसङ्घेन सद्धिं भिक्षुसहस्रेण सब्बेहेव पुराणजटिलेः तत्र सुदं भगवा गयायं विहरति गयासीसे सद्धिं भिक्षुसहस्रेण तत्र खो भगवा भिक्षु आमन्तेसि सब्बं भिक्षवे आदित्तं किंच भिक्षवे सब्बं आदित्तं चक्षु आदित्तं रूपा आदित्ता चक्षु विज्ञानम् आदित्तं चक्षु संफस्सो आदित्तो यमिदं चक्षु संफस्स पच्चया उपपज्यते वेदयितं सुखं वा दुःखं वा अदुःखमसुखं वा तंपि आदित्यं केन आदित्यं रागज्ञिना दोषज्ञिना मोहज्ञिना आदित्यं जातिया जराय मरणेन शोके हि परिदेवे हि दुःखे हि दोमनस्ये हि उपायासे हि आदित्यन्ति वदामि सोतम आदित्यं सद्दा आदित्ता सोत विज्ञानम् आदित्यं सोत संफस्सो आदित्तो यमिदं सोत संफस्स पच्चया uppajjati vedayitum sukham va dukkham va adukham asukham va tampi adittam kena adittam ragaggina dosaggina mohaggina adittam.
इत्युक्तं सिद्धार्थेन बुद्धेन धर्मचक्रे प्रवर्तिते.
Alexander Csoma pondered many a long year amongst the Tibetan books in the high Himalayas. The tumult of the constantly drifting world of existence down below did not reach him. There, on the water of the lake, is a puny image of the great heaven glittering up above. Down below the real is a false tracery, evanescing into diffuse vacuousness. He read the teaching in the books, drinking in every word. He then noted down for the British king that, according to the Tibetan writings, one sole authority exists in the world: time, which is present in all things and constantly passing by, invisible and governing all, adjuster of the orbits of stars and raiser of blades of grass, creator and destroyer, with dominion over sun and moon. That was the sole reality, and all which exists outside it is there merely to display it. He noted down for the British king that, according to the Tibetan writings, it was sheer stupidity to ponder on other things, to weave plans, make any endeavor. So heed well. Let time pass gently by. Don't reveal yourself too strongly. Don't try to set any direction on its passing. Cupidity will prove your undoing. That is what Alexander Csoma exhorted the British king once upon a time. He, for his own part, then closed his books forever. From that day on, he scrutinized the face of the Himalayas ever more frequently and at ever greater length from the window of his monastery.
Bolond, aki a dolgok nevei közt kapirgál. Mintha múlhatnék a néven, ami csak némán tud létezni. A megnevezés sohasem tökéletes. A szó mindig kevés, hibás. Ám mindeninnen szavak tízezrei merednek ránk. Ők mutatnak az elmének irányt. De hogy mit akarnak mondani a szók? Nem értjük mindig jól, vagy elfelejtettük már. Hogy milyen lehet a szavakba öltöztetett valóság. Lassan azok se tudják, akik a tudós könyveket írják.
Anyone who scratches around amongst the names of things is crazy. As if anything could hang on the name of something that exists mutely.
Lassan azok se tudják, akik a tudós könyveket írják.
Yet words in their tens of thousands rise about us on all sides. They give the brain direction. But as to what words seek to say, we don't always comprehend too well, or have already forgotten. Whence do I come? Where do I go? It is not you who set the track. I have my home under the green cliff. 1,000 troughs and 100 peaks are dividing us. Try your luck. Show up. Why don't you? I shall welcome you with just a roar of laughter.
When Alexander Csoma did nothing else in the Himalayas than just contemplate the sky, the mountains, the stones, the trees, watching what the blades of grass, the flowers, the beetles and the birds did, he again meditated at length. Then one day, he decided that he would descend below. Up above, he had learned from the Tibetan books what the world beyond the material conceals. He now set off to see what the material world might be like from the inner side. He bade farewell to the learned monks of the Tibetan monastery. They bowed deeply to one another, and he set off along the riverbank down the valley. They were taken aback by how swiftly he moved away. At first, he was as big as a raven, then as a fly, and finally, no bigger than a poppy seed. When he again reached the Middle Kingdom on his journey, he made a halt one last time. He looked about him to see what people were doing. Does a man hard at work comprehend his fate, his business? Or is it just the man who contemplates up above, who comprehends where he is heading, what awaits him? He wished to know before he left them too. He watched and watched the multitude for a good long time, interrogating the wiser amongst them. Then one day he moved on from there as well. What interests me, he declared to his companions here, is whether I was before I came into the world, and whether I shall be after death. Where was I? Where shall I be? Does the subterranean world know about me now? And if I descend, shall I know about you? Until life is invited from death, and death from life, until you have been the guest of heaven and the subterranean depths, you are merely the weary guest of mud and darkness. And then no one ever saw him again. They gazed at length after him, secretly hoping that in the depths of the subterranean world he would come across not only his antecedents, but also the relics of his ancestors.
Nincs semmi sem, csak ti vagytok, míg vagytok egyáltalán.
Nothing at all is, only you are, insofar as you are at all. It would therefore be best if from now on you were to look after everything yourselves, to see through the secret of reality, discern the causes and the law. That is now up to you. Go onwards.
Sanje jodan zoje zonon ba yanju ba do ne ya zonje da ji ji zoje be zonon bi ula manje sanje du ba ra e sho manju simje nam je de wa na ni be yu na ba ji simje nam je du na ji simje nam je du me be de wa na mi da wa ji ji simje nam je ni de ja da na da ye zo simje ba ra ju ro e ji ke wa dorme dang me da ye sa jarwa zole de me yang ji ji me mare do go de korwa da me muda me ba jam ye da da za za zin ba de chi wa ji ji chi me lu zu da chi wa ji ja wa da sha da zu chi wa ji ji du ji rang ji ni da
In the district of Haramsek, it is believed to the present time that if Alexander Csoma had returned from Tibet, he would have become the king of the entire land of the Zeklers. They waited a long time. Some still await him now. Without a doubt, by the time he had traversed the three worlds, he had become the wisest man who ever lived. Here, kings hung on his every word. From here and beyond, dragons, will-o'-the-wisps, gods and fairies marveled at his learning. He knew everything about the heavenly and earthly world, and was acquainted with the darkest crannies of hell. They waited a long time. Some still await him now.
क्या जब साज है ये शहनाई दो ही सुर का ये खेल सारा है क्या जब साज है ये शहनाई दो ही सुर का ये खेल सारा है एक सुर जिंदगी का साहिल है दूसरा मौत का किनारा है क्या जब साज है ये शहनाई दो ही सुर का ये खेल सारा है ये बजे तो हयात की महफिल पूरे जो बन पे आके जम जाए जिंदगी एक ख्वाब हो जाए ये अगर बजते बजते थम जाए ये कभी चाँद चाँदनी का है और कभी सुबह का सितारा है ये कभी चाँद चाँदनी का है और कभी सुबह का सितारा है क्या जब साज है ये शहनाई, दो ही सुर का ये खेल सारा है। आह और वाह का ये संगम है, सोज और साज की जवानी है अगर ये शबाब का किस्सा, एक बेवा की भी कहानी है। कहो का ही आबशार नहीं, आंसुओं का भी एक धारा है। कहो का ही आबशार नहीं, आंसुओं का भी एक धारा है। क्या जब साज है ये शहनाई, दो ही सुर का ये खेल सारा है।